It was just past 11 on a Tuesday night when my phone rang, slicing through the quiet of my Austin apartment like a knife. I was already half asleep after a long day at the marketing firm, but the name flashing on the screen made me sit bolt upright.
Mom.
My heart kicked hard against my ribs. She never called this late unless something was wrong, really wrong. Rebecca. Her voice came through cracked and trembling, the kind of sound that instantly floods your veins with ice. In the background, I could hear my father's low mutter, urgent and strained. Tell her now.
Diane.
We don't have time. Mom. What's going on? I was already out of bed, feet hitting the cool hardwood floor, pacing before I even realized it. My mind raced through every worst-case scenario: car accident,
Heart attack.
something sudden and irreversible. We need money. Honey. $50,000. Right now. Wire tonight if you can. The words tumbled out fast, her breath catching like she was fighting back tears. I stopped dead. 50,000?
Why?
What happened? Is Dad okay? Are you hurt?
She made a soft,
broken sound that could have been a sob. I can't explain everything right now. It's urgent. Please. Rebecca. We're your parents. Just do this for us. My father's voice cut in sharper, taking over the line. Rebecca. This is serious. Stop with the questions and help your family. We raised you better than this. The guilt slammed into me like it always did, a heavy, familiar weight that had been trained into me since childhood. But something fell off this time. The panic in their voices sounded too scripted, too perfectly timed. Still, the fear won out. What if Dad really was in trouble? What if this was one of those moments you regret not acting on for the rest of your life? I promised them I'd figure it out by morning and hung up, but sleep was impossible. I lay there staring at the ceiling fans spinning lazy circles, replaying every word. By 4 a.m., I'd booked a flight to Chicago for first thing the next day. I didn't pack much, just tossed jeans, sweaters, and toiletries into a carry-on, my hands shaking the whole time. The Uber to the airport felt surreal, the city lights blurring past as I imagined hospital waiting rooms, monitors beeping, my father pale in a bed. On the plane, I couldn't stop thinking about how we got here, how I became the reliable one, the invisible daughter who fixed everything. My sister Madison was born when I was 5, and overnight, the family orbit shifted entirely around her. She was the golden child, bright curls, big blue eyes, the one who could cry and instantly summon comfort. I became the helper. At 10, I was walking her to school every morning, waiting outside her classroom because she hated being alone. If she had a meltdown, it was my job to calm her down while Mom shuttled her to dance, soccer, art classes, whatever new passion Madison declared. I remember one afternoon in middle school, so clearly it still stings. I'd earned straight A's and my teacher had written a glowing note praising my creativity. I rushed home waving the report card like a trophy, but Mom barely glanced at it. That's nice, Rebecca. But Madison has her spring recital tonight. Can you help her with her costume? She's so nervous. The recital was beautiful. Of course. Madison glowed under the lights while I sat in the audience feeling like a shadow. These moments piled up quietly over the years. I learned to cook simple meals because Mom was too busy. I forged signatures on forms when deadlines loomed. My own dreams, art club, a summer theater program, got sidelined whenever Madison needed rides or emotional support. Crying about it earned me lectures about being selfish or having an attitude. Madison's tears.
Though?
National emergency. By the time I graduated college and moved to Austin 3 states away, I thought distance would free me. I built a life there, 60-hour work weeks at first, climbing the ladder in digital marketing, saving aggressively, Finally buying my own small condo. From the outside, it looked like success. Inside, it felt like breathing for the first time. But families like mine don't let go easily. Over the past 3 years, the requests started coming, small at first. 500 here for Dad's supposed medical copays after a back injury. 1,000 for roof repairs after storms. I sent it every time. That was what family did. Right? You help without questioning too much. The pattern was so ingrained I almost didn't notice how the amounts crept up or how the stories always aligned perfectly with their needs. Until this call. The flight dragged. 4 hours of staring out at clouds. Trying to convince myself I was overreacting. Maybe there was a legitimate crisis. Maybe I was paranoid from years of feeling used. But a quiet voice in my gut whispered that something didn't add up. 50,000 wasn't roof money. That was life-changing money. I landed, rented a car, and drove through familiar Chicago suburbs as the late afternoon sun painted everything golden. Their house looked normal, warm lights glowing from every window. No ambulances. No chaos. I sat in the driveway for 5 long minutes. Engine off. Heart hammering. Then I let myself in with the spare key I still carried. The smell hit first, fresh coffee. Something sweet baking, cookies, or banana bread. Normal Tuesday evening smells. Laughter floated from the kitchen. Actual laughter. Mom saw me first, standing at the island chopping vegetables. Her face went blank for a split second before a smile snapped into place. Rebecca, you didn't say you were coming early. You said it was urgent, I answered. My voice sounding distant even to me. I thought someone was dying. Dad sat relaxed in his recliner, a magazine open on his lap, looking perfectly healthy. No hospital gown. No worry lines. Madison walked in next, phone in hand, smiling at whatever she was reading. She glanced up, saw me, and her expression shifted only briefly before brightening.
Oh. Hey.
You're here. That's when I noticed the table. Wedding magazines fanned out. Vendor brochures. A thick binder with color-coded tabs. Fabric swatches. Venue lists with prices scribbled in Mom's handwriting. Madison's left hand caught the light, a massive diamond engagement ring. Easily $20,000 on its own. My stomach dropped. The kitchen felt too bright. Too normal. The refrigerator hummed softly. The oven timer ticked, and the air carried that sweet baking scent that should have been comforting, but now turned my stomach. I stared at the wedding planning spread, my brain struggling to reconcile it with the terror I'd felt for the last 36 hours. Mom spoke first, words rushing out like she'd rehearsed. Planning a wedding these days is incredibly stressful. Rebecca, costs have skyrocketed. Venues, catering, flowers. Madison's been so overwhelmed, and we thought you might want to help your sister have the day she deserves. I interrupted, voice low and steady despite the storm inside. You thought you'd call me at 11 at night. Make it sound like someone was dying. So, I'd wire $50,000 for a wedding. Dad stood up slowly, crossing his arms. Don't be dramatic. Nobody said anyone was dying. Mom's voice was shaking. You told me it was urgent. You wouldn't explain. Dad said I needed to stop asking questions and just help, because that's what family does. Madison rolled her eyes, flipping her hair in that familiar way that used to make me cave. You always make everything about you. Rebecca, this is my wedding, the biggest day of my life. You have a great job. A nice place in Austin. What's 50,000 to you? The question landed like a slap. I looked at her, at the ring sparkling under the lights, the designer bag slung over a chair, the effortless confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Then I looked at my parents, who stood there waiting for me to fall back into line. I pulled out my phone calmly. I've kept records. Every transfer over the last 3 years. Medical bills. Repairs. Emergencies, you said. It adds up to more than I realized. Mom's face paled. Why would you track us like that? That's paranoid. Because I stopped trusting blindly somewhere along the way. The words hung heavy. You've been using me. The small amounts built the habit. This time you went big with a scare tactic because you knew I'd panic and pay. Dad's voice hardened. We raised you. We gave you a home. Food. Everything you needed. You gave me responsibility, I shot back. Chores. Guilt. The message that my role was to make Madison's life smoother. You celebrated her every achievement while mine barely registered. I missed art programs, school events, pieces of my own childhood because she needed me. I learned to cook and forge signatures because you were too busy with her activities. And when I brought home perfect grades, you changed the subject to her recital. The memories flooded faster now. One vivid scene. I was 12, so excited about an after-school art intensive I'd begged to join. The night before, Madison had a meltdown about taking the bus home alone. Mom canceled my plans without asking. Your sister needs you, Rebecca. Family comes first. I sat on the curb waiting for her that day. Sketchbook untouched in my backpack. Another time. High school graduation. I'd earned a scholarship to a good out-of-state school. At the family dinner, Dad toasted Madison's cheerleading achievements instead. My announcement felt like an afterthought. These weren't explosive fights. They were quiet erosions, year after year, until I stopped expecting anything different. Madison's face twisted. This is ridiculous. You have your career, because we pushed you. Now you act like we owe you? I deserve a beautiful wedding. You deserve what you and your fiancé can afford, I said quietly. Not what you can manipulate out of me. The argument escalated. Voices rose. Mom cried about how they'd already told relatives and booked deposits. Dad accused me of ingratitude, reminding me of every Christmas gift, every school supply they'd bought. Madison sobbed dramatically, the kind of tears that once made me instantly apologize and fix whatever was wrong. But this time, something inside me had shifted. The old instinct to soothe, to sacrifice, to stay useful, it cracked. I looked at each of them in turn. I came because I love you. I dropped everything because I thought you needed me. I imagined the worst: hospitals, loss, regrets. And you used that fear to fund a party. It's not a party, Madison snapped through tears. It's my future. No, I replied. It's your entitlement. And I'm done financing it. Silence fell, thick and stunned. The confrontation stretched on, raw and exhausting. Every accusation I leveled brought a counter from them, defensiveness layered with guilt trips. Mom reached for my arm at one point, eyes pleading. We're family, Rebecca.
Blood.
You can't just turn your back. I stepped away. Family doesn't weaponize fear. Family doesn't call at midnight pretending someone's dying to extract money. Real family supports without keeping score or making one child the provider and the other the princess. Dad pointed toward the door. Voice cold. If you walk away from helping your sister now, don't expect us to forgive easily. We've sacrificed for you too. I picked up my bag, hands steadier than I felt. You know what? I think I'm finally okay with that. Madison's face flushed red. You're heartless. You're ruining the most important day of my life. No, I said. I'm refusing to let you ruin mine any longer. I'm not your emergency fund. I'm not the backup plan when you overspend on rings and venues. I came here terrified, ready to give anything to save you. And you used it. Behind me, as I headed for the door, Mom called my name repeatedly, voice breaking.
Dad went silent.
Jaw tight. Madison's sobs echoed dramatically. At the threshold, I turned one last time. Remember this. I showed up because I thought you needed me. When you're angry later, remember that you chose to lie instead of asking honestly. No one answered. Outside, the evening air felt cooler, clearer. Their voices erupted inside, arguing, blaming, scrambling for solutions. But it sounded far away, like a problem belonging to someone else now. For the first time, their crisis wasn't automatically mine to solve. Messages started before I reached the rental car. Mom's were long paragraphs about disappointment, years of sacrifice. How could I abandon them like this? Dad's were shorter, colder, reminders of everything they'd done. Labels like ungrateful. Madison's were pure venom. I'd ruined her life. I was selfish. She'd never speak to me again. I didn't reply. I drove to a quiet hotel near the airport, checked in, ordered room service I barely touched, and sat on the bed watching my phone light up repeatedly. Strangely, I felt nothing. No crushing guilt. No panic to fix it. No urge to call back and apologize. Just a profound, almost eerie calm. The next morning, I flew home to Austin. Back in my condo, paid for with my own salary. Decorated with pieces I'd chosen. In a city I'd picked for myself, I opened my banking app and canceled the automatic monthly transfers that had been going to them for 3 years. It took 30 seconds. A few clicks. The habit of a lifetime severed. A flicker of old guilt tried to rise, the voice whispering that family doesn't abandon family. That I was being cruel. But then I remembered Mom's brief blank expression when I walked in. The wedding binder. Madison's ring. The calculated panic in their voices on the phone. The guilt evaporated. Word traveled fast through extended family. An aunt called, carefully neutral, fishing for details. Cousins texted variations of what happened. I told the truth calmly. Without drama, I'd been sending money for supposed emergencies. They called with an urgent request that sounded life-threatening. I flew home to discover it was for Madison's wedding. I said no. Some went quiet. Others tried to mediate. A few quietly agreed I was right.
Most simply didn't know what to say.
The wedding plans scaled back dramatically without my contribution. Smaller venue. Fewer guests. Simpler everything. My name wasn't spoken aloud in family calls. But I heard it in the awkward pauses. The careful questions about my well-being. Madison married 6 months later. I wasn't invited. I heard through the grapevine it was nice but modest. She looked beautiful. Guests had a good time. And I felt only relief, not triumph, not bitterness. Just relief that chapter had closed without me in it. Time passed. 1 year. Then another. My life in Austin kept unfolding in quiet, steady ways that felt profoundly mine. Work brought promotions, leading bigger campaigns, mentoring juniors who saw me as competent rather than obligated. I made new friends through hiking groups and book clubs, people who knew nothing of my family history and liked me for who I was, not what I could provide. I started dating again. Cautiously. My relationship with Alex began differently, slow coffees, honest conversations. Someone who noticed when I was quiet and asked why, without assuming I owed an explanation. It felt healthy because it started with mutual respect, not extraction. I didn't miss the chaos of emergency calls or the low hum of guilt that used to live permanently under my skin. My parents reached out occasionally, obligatory birthday texts, generic holiday greetings that said, thinking of you, but never we're sorry or we understand. I replied politely but briefly, the way you might to distant acquaintances. Madison never contacted me once. That silence was its own kind of peace. About 2 years after that night in their kitchen, I sat on my couch one late spring evening with the windows open. The city hummed outside, cars passing, laughter from neighbors, life moving forward. My phone lay silent on the coffee table. No alerts. No dread of the next ring. In that moment, it hit me fully. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for the next crisis. Not for approval. Not for them to suddenly see me. I was simply living. My life belonged to me. Every decision. Every boundary. Every quiet joy. I hadn't won in the dramatic sense. There was no tearful reconciliation where they acknowledged years of imbalance. No apologies arrived. But I gained something irreplaceable, myself. The daughter trained for 27 years to be useful had finally learned how to be whole. Wholeness didn't require their validation. It only required me choosing it. Again and again. Looking back, I understand now how subtly the dynamic had been built. It wasn't overt cruelty most days. It was the thousand small choices, praising Madison's every milestone while mine earned polite nods, assigning me responsibilities that freed her to shine, framing my questions as disloyalty. The $50,000 ask was just the climax of a long pattern. Real love, I've learned, doesn't drain you dry. It doesn't manufacture fear to control you. It doesn't reduce you to a resource. Walking away wasn't heartless. It was the most honest act I'd ever taken, honest with them. And more importantly, honest with myself. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for everyone involved is to stop allowing yourself to be used. Even when the people asking are the ones who raised you. In the years since, I've reflected often on what family truly means. The cultural narrative pushes endurance at all costs. Blood is thicker. Forgive endlessly. Sacrifice silently. But endurance without reciprocity becomes self-erasure. I chose a different definition. Love that lifts rather than extracts. Relationships built on mutual respect rather than obligation. My career continued to grow. I took on leadership roles that let me travel occasionally, seeing parts of the country I'd never explored. Austin's vibrant energy suited me. Live music, sunny trails, a community that valued independence. Friends became chosen family, celebrating my wins without hidden agendas. Alex and I grew closer. One evening, over dinner, I finally shared the full story, not for sympathy, but to explain the boundaries I still held firm. He listened without judgment, then said simply, "You protected your peace. That's strength." His words stayed with me. Occasionally, distant relatives would share updates. The scaled-down wedding had its charms. They said, Madison seemed happy enough. My parents stayed in their routines. No dramatic downfall. No sudden realizations. Life continued for them too, just without my financial safety net. I never regretted my decision. The quiet calm that settled after that night became my new normal. No more bracing for calls. No more calculating how much help I could afford without resentment. The space I created allowed me to invest in myself, therapy to unpack old patterns, hobbies I'd abandoned, rest I'd never permitted. One autumn afternoon, walking a trail near my condo, I paused at a viewpoint overlooking the hills. The air was crisp, leaves turning gold and red. For a moment, I imagined the alternate path, wiring the money, attending the lavish wedding, slipping back into the old role. The thought brought no nostalgia, only a deep thankfulness that I'd chosen differently. The core truth remains, when love becomes manipulation, the bravest response is to step away. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation and honesty. I didn't destroy my family. I simply stopped letting them define my worth by what I could give. Hold didn't come easily. It required facing the grief of lost expectations, the loneliness of estrangement, the moral weight of boundaries. But on the other side waited freedom, authentic, unburdened, entirely mine. If there's a lingering question, It's this. How many of us are still playing roles we never auditioned for? Paying prices we never agreed to? Because family has always meant endurance over equity? And what might we gain by finally choosing ourselves? The sun dipped lower, painting the horizon in warm tones. I smiled to myself, turned back toward home, and kept walking lighter with every step.